Welcome to the Show Up Dad. This is a podcast for hardworking fathers looking to level up their fathering skills and be more than just a paycheck or provider for their home. I am super pleased to welcome none other than Kevin from Low Drag Linehand fame. Kevin is a husband of 9 years, a father of 4 kids, a journeyman lineman with 18 years in the trade, and a successful entrepreneur. Today, Kevin is going to share with us what it takes for him to be a Show Up Dad. Welcome to the show, brother. So glad to have you on.
It was good. It was good, man. I had just probably, right in the middle of the road, average, childhood, not necessarily like, white picket fence, but pretty close. Mom and dad married, still alive. I have a younger brother. He's 3.5 years younger than I am. Spent my entire childhood in the same home. My dad worked for a grocery chain and my mom worked for the post office. So, everyone kind of knew who my mom was from the mail route. It was, couldn't get away with too much, cause they would all see her every day. But yeah, my dad, he's retired now. My mom's retired, but, grew up in a town called Marysville. It's about 45 minutes north of Sacramento in California. And we grew up outside of town, riding dirt bikes, four-wheelers, played sports, baseball, football, for the most part. And yeah, graduated high school in 2000, kind of bounced around going to school a little bit, working and going to school. And then was lucky enough to get a job with PG&E as a grunt. And that's just like short summary.
Yeah.
Up until I was an adult. Lots of cousins, aunts and uncles, had a pretty big family.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's pretty interesting to see that you had the basis of a nuclear family. You know what I mean? It's sad to say, but that's rare these days. You know what I mean? With the parents being together, you know what I mean? Growing up the way you did, rambunctious, you know what I mean? Just like me and my brother did, and that's awesome to see, One of the things I wanted to ask you, Kevin, is how big of a role did your father play in your development? What do you remember?
The biggest role my dad played in my development was he was always there. Like he was always present. He was off to work before I got up in the morning, and in the grocery business, there's not a whole lot of days off, and he had gotten into management when I was young, and he was working his way up, kind of through the management chain. But it didn't matter if it was just like a normal Wednesday night, baseball game or whatever, like my dad made all my games, any sporting activities myself or my brother did. My parents, both parents were always there to pick us up, take us there, bring us home and watch and support us. And probably the biggest thing I got from my dad, couple things, was I remember I was on the swim team in high school my senior year, and I had only done swim team I was going to play college football. So I had done the swim team to kind of get in shape and get ready. I didn't want to play baseball my senior year, so I was focusing on what I was going to do after high school. And he would still make all my swim meets. And I was the worst male swimmer on the team by far, probably the worst male and I was the worst. I sucked at swimming. Like it was torture, and I wanted to quit so bad. And I had finally quit. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like I quit. And like I came home, like, oh, what are you doing home? I thought you had swim practice. I'm like, no, I quit. And he was just like, really, you quit? And he was like, I've raised you better than that. Like, what do you mean you quit? You're go back, And there was a couple times early on in life where I wanted to quit things, and he was just like, we're not quitters. Like if you start something, you finish it. And if you don't want to do it any longer after you finish whatever your commitment is, that's fine. But if you start something, You need to finish it. You need to see it through. And that was a big influence my dad had on me. And then the other was he was always truthful with me. Like he wouldn't, I'm kind of half part of the everyone gets a trophy generation and half not.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go by the years, I was born in '82, that I am a millennial, but there's kind of like a little catch 22 with like the early years of a millennial. So I caught kind of both ends of it, but my dad never, would tell me I did a great job if I didn't do a great job. And when I was 12, we were playing Little League. I didn't make All Stars. And, I wasn't like crushed crying in the dugout or anything, but I was bummed, and he was just like, hey man, like, dude, you weren't good enough. Like you just got to accept that you weren't good enough. And if you want to make All Stars next year, you need to work harder. Like you need to get better. You need to spend more time, out on the baseball diamond, and that just like stuck with me forever. That ride home from the like closing ceremonies and all the teams are there and they kind of announced, the softball all-star team, the baseball all-star team. And, it's like every single one of my friends is there. And, it's like, dang, I didn't make it. And just that ride home, it's like, hey, they got a good team. You just weren't there. Work harder. Don't cry about it.
Yeah.
So
And how do you think, Kevin, that hard truth that he shared with you that day, how do you think that affected you? I mean, did it cause you to really look at yourself and be like, all right, I need to try harder? You know what I mean? Or what do you think looking back?
yeah, it's kind of crazy the effect that it had on me, and still today. Like, I have, like, I'm a horrible liar. Like I can't lie. I can't fake it. Like I and I think that has something to do with it. Like just always from the time I can remember, it was just like, don't lie, tell the truth. Like if you messed up, fess up to it, take your lumps and learn from it and keep on moving. And that was part of it. And the other part was like, don't you can't expect anything in life if you don't want to work for it, and it was like, you weren't good enough. If you want it, work for it, go out there and get it, and the next year I did make All Stars and I earned it, and it was like kind of being able to see that through, from, because I was horrible at baseball. I took a couple of years off and did like, taekwondo and stuff like that, and didn't want to play baseball. So like I think from the age of like 8 to 11, I didn't play. And I mean, I like didn't even play in the front yard or nothing. And my brother is super athletic. He's like way more athletic than me. He played, Division I college football, and sports came a lot easier to him than they did me. But, when I came back to playing my 11-year-old year, I mean, dude, I caught one fly ball all year long. It was like a 99% chance I was going to drop the fly ball if it got hit out to left field. They just like put me out in left field. I got to play whatever the minimum was. You had to play every player. That was me, And so, dude, just like the kids on the team making fun of me, and, like I had to like completely change. I had to like relearn how to throw a baseball. Like, I mean, it was embarrassing, dude. Like I couldn't imagine my parents just sitting in the stands at every game. And it's like, here I come out of the dugout into left field. And it's like, oh God, please don't hit a ball towards him, And, but, from between 11 and 13, man, that was kind of like some good years of learning how to put your head down and work if you wanted something or want to get better at something. It was just like, sports at that time in my life, and probably most kids' life that are that age. I mean, it's different now with computers and, video games, and, there's a little bit more to do outside of, athletic stuff. But at that age for me, and during those years, it was like, dude, sports was everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
all my friends played. It was, it was all any of us did outside of, climbing trees and throwing rocks or whatever. But,
Mm-hmm.
it was like our life, my brother and my life, it just revolved around, athletics. So
Looking back, was your father pretty athletic? Was he a big sports fanatic or anything like that?
no, not really. No, he was athletic, but my dad bounced around a lot as a kid, came from a broken home, and I mean, he had a stepdad that raised him from pretty young, So I mean, he had a two-parent household for the most part, but he never really played sports. Like that really wasn't, his thing. But he was in the army. My parents met in the army. They were both in the military, so that's where my parents met. But my dad was kind of like, he never forced anything on me. It was like, well, if you want to play, well, let's do it. Like it was always, if I wanted to do something like that, it was always an option. But it was never, like I had some friends where it was like, dude, they're playing and their dad is making sure of that. And it was my dad was like the polar opposite of that, you know.
Yeah, no, it's good to see that he supported the decisions you had, but he allowed you to make those decisions as well. I think today,
Yeah.
I think a lot of fathers, especially around our age groups, you know what I mean. I remember one time, give you an example. Uh, I grew up wrestling. I was a wrestling household. I was wrestling since I was 6. I went all over the country wrestling. Okay. Um, Needless to say, I was at this real big tournament and I saw this kid lose. Okay. And this family, I don't want to say any names, but this family was really big. They were 5-time state champions, meaning that they won state since 8th grade. Okay. I mean, these guys were
Yeah.
phenomenal wrestlers. And the father was just very, very harsh on him. Well, anyhow, I had finished up and I went outside and I was going to change my singlet and I opened the door and I caught this dad and he had his son by the freaking shirt, dude, his singlet, right? And he had him against the wall. And in the other hand, he had a closed fist and he was going to smash his kid, dude. And it was
Dang.
if I can remember correctly, because those kids never lost, right? I think it was because he gave up a couple of points. He didn't even lose. He just gave
Oh,
up.
they didn't even lose.
No, I mean, because these guys, you know what I mean? They never lost. I mean, they were phenoms. And it's kind of funny because one of them got to college and he totally just like was burnt out of wrestling. He had a full ride scholarship and he didn't want nothing to do with wrestling in college. You know what I mean? He just got into partying, turned all fat, you know what I mean? Drinking a lot of beer and stuff like that. You know what I mean? He just kind of walked away from it. You know what I mean? But it's crazy that if you don't have that balance, you know what I mean? Like how your dad did, you know what I mean? And then seeing, the example I just gave, how we could have the negative effects on our children, you know what I mean? But what other trait do you think you recognize in yourself? If you really to self-reflect, what other trait besides truthfulness, besides good work ethic, what other trait that you would say you got from your father that you see yourself passing down to your kids? Like you catch yourself if you really think about it.
Um, Probably like I'm kind of a softy dude. Like, I care about people, like it's, and the flip to that is I also have the ability to where if someone screws me over, I mean, I can cut someone in the clear in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like just right now. But the flip to that is that, unless you give me some just over the top, reason to cut you in the clear, like I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my dad's kind of the same way. And and just, like an example is I was working on a crew, and man, it was dicey, dude. Like none of us really got along. I mean, we all kind of tolerated each other, and we were all, pretty young. And there wasn't a whole lot of supervision with the crew foreman or the supervisor. And one of the guys on the crew had gotten in. I mean, we had all gotten in a lot of trouble for some work procedure stuff, and no one got hurt, but we were all, under disciplinary actions. And one of the guys, he had like some trip plan, like he was going out of town for the weekend, and it was a Friday. And at PG&E, like it's not like on the outside where, hey, we're done with our pole. It's 2:00 piece. We're going home. At PG&E, you're done at 2. You go back to the yard and you sweep the yard till 4:30 or whatever quitting time is. Like you don't leave early, and you don't leave early, especially if you're in trouble. And you don't leave early, especially if you're in trouble and you're yarding out of a substation and the operator shack is in the substation and they got cameras and they got everything else. Like if they want to watch us, they can watch us, and I'm pretty sure we were all being watched on a pretty regular basis. But anyway, so he was like, man, I had to do this yesterday with, the investigation, and they kept me late, and I think he was going on a hunting trip or something. And I was supposed to pack all my shit. I didn't get all my stuff packed. So man, no one's here. It's just us. I'm leaving. And I was like, man, as much as me and this guy didn't get along, I was still like, dude, are you sure you want to do that, man? Why don't you just do it? It's only another hour and a half and we're done, dude. Why don't you just hang out and, don't leave, man. Like, I don't want to see you get fired. I don't want to see you get in trouble. As much as I don't like you, I don't want to see you get in trouble. And the other guy on the crew was like, bye, get out of here. And, like I just couldn't not say something, as much as I didn't really like him. It was like, man, come on, dude, just stick it out. Like, I don't want to see you get in trouble for something stupid as leaving early, So that's probably, another trait that I really picked up from my dad is just kind of the ability to care for people, that are around me, that, are kind of in my circle. Even at times I might not, really have good reason to care too much, but it's kind of, one of the basis of our company is, just building up the brotherhood underneath, the flag of Low Drag Linehand. It's like, our customers are everything to us, and we do everything we can to make things right, and make sure we take care of them as much as possible.
Man, that's an admirable trait, brother. You don't really see that much these days. You know what I mean? Especially with someone who you don't really like, for you to step out and be a brother's keeper, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an admirable trait, bro. And that's awesome that you're going to share that with your children, and it's good to see that you recognize that being passed down from your father to you, now to your kids. That's something that we like to see, at the Show Up Dad. I want to transition into you being a father right now. Okay, Kevin? So you went from being a journeyman lineman, right? And now you're a widely recognized distributor of line goods, okay, with Low Drag Linehand. What sparked that change, brother, if you don't mind me asking?
It's crazy. So originally, when I started doing line work, like the first line crew, I was on a labor crew for the first almost 6 months, and we hand dug holes and we blasted, and we were on the western slope of the Sierra, so lots of granite, a lot of that stuff. But anyways, the first overhead line crew I went to, it was like, it was weird because I had always looked at PG&E as one of those jobs that's like really hard to get. If you do get a job there, you have your life together, you're a good, for lack of a better word, a good person, you know, like, and I found out really quick that that wasn't the case in line work. It was like, this guy's an alcoholic drug addict. This guy, his wife won't talk to him. His second, you know, he's on his second wife. She won't even talk to him. This guy is getting in fist fights with his daughter's boyfriend, her boyfriend's dad, her boyfriend's uncle. You know, there was one guy on the crew that was like pretty straight laced, had, you know, a normal functioning home, you know, wife, kids. He was, you know, old. I was young, and I was like 19, 20. So like I'm a baby compared to everyone. And it was that way for a long time. But I was like, because I always wanted it, like kind of my goal after high school was like, get a good job, start a family. Like that was, I just wanted, you know, that was what I wanted. And once I was around these guys for about a week, I was like, I will never, ever let my life turn into what their life is. Like I will never let that happen, period. And there were some times where it got pretty close to being like that, you know, and I was able to kind of pull out of it, but and I've had a failed relationship. We weren't married, but we were close to being married. And it was just like, dude, I can't do this. Like I will not let my life turn into this. I will not, you know, fall into drinking or drug abuse. I will not, you know, my kids are going to love me. My kids are going to talk to me, you know, like there was, and it was like every other crew I went to, because we bounced around from crew, you know, every few months they do a crew shakeup. And there was a lot of guys that worked in our area. So it was like every time I would go to a new crew, it was like there was at least 2 or 3 guys that had some serious drama going on, like just ex-wives and alimony and child support. And it was like, damn, dude, why? I can't, you know, it was just crazy because I'd never been exposed to that. And although, you know, my dad came from a broken home, like when my dad's real dad would come to town, he would stay with my grandma and my grandpa. I call him my grandpa. I called them both my grandpa, but you know, with my grandma and my step grandpa. So it was like I had been around, you know, kind of dysfunctional, what you would label as dysfunctional or broken homes or whatever, but it was never like drama. It was never a bad thing. It was just like, hey, that's just the way it is. You know, grandpa's coming in from Texas. He's going to, you know, stay with grandma and grandpa in, you know, Orville or whatever. So all that kind of stuff was new to me. But later on, I worked, and I always associated it to being out of town because we traveled a bunch, even though we worked for the utility. And I didn't travel nearly as much as I traveled hardly at all because I was able to make a move, but into a different department. But a lot of these guys that I was working with, I mean, they would be home or what you would call home. And then they would get sent, they called it rotation. They would get sent to the Bay Area for, dude, 6 months, 18 months. It was like, so I always associated that, you know, once you got home, once you were able to work from home, everything would be fine. Everything would be great. And then I worked with a dude whose dad worked for the same company. And he was like, you know, like we were just talking and he's like, my dad was gone all the time. And I was like, really? Well, he's been, you know, here working the whole time. He's like, yeah, but he was never home. And he said something to the effect like, you know, there's nothing worse than when you're playing a baseball game in town, you know, your dad's home and you see him drive by in the company truck going out to put wire up or, you know, carpool, whatever. And I was like, damn, like it just hit me like, man, that never even crossed my mind that you could be home and just completely not be present, whether it's, you know, call outs, emergency call outs, because the way PG&E was kind of structured was they had a department, a construction department, and then a maintenance department. The maintenance department had one yard, they would stay there, they could stay there their whole career, you know, never leave that yard. And then the construction guys bounced around a lot. And it was like, ooh, if I could just get into the maintenance, you know, I'll be able to be home every night and, you know, establish a solid life. And then I made it there and realized that, man, it's the same stuff going on here, just, you know, kind of a different way of doing it. You know, like, would you rather have your dad not be at your baseball game because he's, you know, 200 miles away at work, or would you rather your dad not be at your baseball game because he just got called out to work to go to the next town over and replace a pole? Either way, your dad's not there, you know. And it's like, you know, 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. So that was kind of the turning point where it was like, man, I need to start thinking of ways where I can, you know, now I'm getting married. This is about the time I'm getting married. So, you know, we want to have kids, and, you know, I was just always kind of like thinking, how can I manage this? How can I, you know, balance it? Because when you don't have kids, it's kind of, you know, it's whatever, dude. Like, you can come and go as you please, more or less. But once you get married, you know, and it was like, when we get married, we're having kids. That was like, you know, that's why we're getting married, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope I answered your question, but I started rambling a little bit.
No, it's all good, brother. It's cool to see that your story resonates with me, and it resonates with a lot of our listeners. You know what I mean? I myself, I grew up in the construction, and then I thought, like you, I'm going to go work at this utility. Okay. Same thing. You know, even though I wasn't home, or even though I was home, you know what I mean? I was getting call outs. I was always working. I was always at work. I think I was more at work being home than I was when I was out of town. Because at least out of town, if you got time off, you were off. You weren't getting a phone call saying, hey, you know what I mean? Here's your call out or whatever, you know? So I tried that business, and then I tried being a co-op as well, you know, and same thing, you know, I mean, just getting called out all hours of the night, you know what I mean? Different scenarios. And like you said, you're never really there. And even when you're there that week, like you're on call, I don't know how PG&E does it, but at the utility I worked at, if you're on call, you're always waiting for that call. You couldn't relax, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh man. And it just so happened to be that if you're eating with your family, you got the call. You know what I mean? It's almost like the luck of the draw, you know, Murphy's Law or whatever you want to call it, you know, the cosmos or whatever. It always lined up when you were having to do something with your family. You know what I mean? And it just sucks. You know what I mean? And it's good to see that, you know, you recognize that and you were like, you know what? I need to make that change, you know? So you did answer that question. I thank you for that, brother. What are some of the positive effects that you see from making this transition that you did from being a lineman to being an entrepreneur now?
Yeah, there's probably been just as many negative effects as there is positive effects. And, you know, it's kind of like the grass is always greener. You know, it was like when I was in, you know, on the construction side, it was like, oh, if I could only get here, you know, if I could only get to maintenance. And then it was like, oh, if I could only move out of California, you know, if I could only get here, you know. And it's like, man, if we could only build low drag Linehand big enough to where we could do that full time, you know. And we got to that point. And then it was like, okay, you work on these goals and you get to that goal, and then you're like, okay, I did it. I was able to make enough money to pay my bills, to quit my job, and now what? You know, it's like, what's the next goal? Well, anyways, but the positive that came with it was I am in 100% control of my life and my family's life. there is no one that's going to tell me to do anything. And for a long time, I always had more or less someone telling me when to be to work, when I could go home, when to come back to work. And I got a paycheck every 2 weeks like clockwork, whether I was there or on vacation, not there, like I was getting paid. That was happening. And to go from such a structured, regimented career to now like, okay, you did it. You were able to quit. Now, rent's due in 10 days. It kind of, the first 6 months was like the most stress filled, anxiety filled, like, because it was constantly like when I would be at work doing line work, I'd be like, man, if I could only just get like 4 more hours a day in the shop at home, if I could only get 4 more hours a day. Well, then it was like, well, now you got 24 hours. Now what are you going to do? And I used as much of those hours as I could. And I had myself like barricaded in here, just working. And that was the first time. So I've quit a couple times. I've quit and gone back a couple times. So it kind of got unhealthy. Like it was really like kind of like being on call. You always got that phone in your pocket. You're always waiting for that phone to ring. And we were fortunate enough to really find a place to rent that had a shop. So we were able to save quite a bit of money with being able to operate from the house. And I mean, our shop is perfect for what we have going on. Like we have just enough room, power, heat. It's nice. And we're able to be big enough and have enough room to have employees and stuff like that. But so now I can't get away from it. Every free moment I have in the house, I'm looking out the window at the shop. I'm like, man, there's always something to do. There's always like, oh, I could be, I need to get this done. I need to get this done. I need to get this done. Like constant, like never really being able to really break free from it. Like it was like a magnet just constantly trying to pull me out here. So I got a phone call from a friend. He's like, hey, I'm in a position. I need some help. I need some people in my corner. There's a new company starting. They're contracting on PG&E property. I know you're pretty familiar with the way that they do things, and their spec book is like ridiculous. I don't know if you've ever worked on PG&E property or know people that have, but it's the spec is over the top for one, and then with their stuff, it was like it seemed like every week we were getting an update, like a small update to the spec. We're not doing this anymore. We're doing this now, and every, month it was like a pretty significant change. It felt like. So I was familiar with it and knew how to navigate it. And so we were like, all right, let's put low drag Linehand on ice. I'll hit the road and do some contracting. And did that for a while, and it kind of fizzled out. We basically ran out of work. So went to work for another contractor, and was working for them for a little while, and COVID happened. So my wife's at home. I wasn't too far from home. I was like 4 hours from home, and COVID happens. And, of course, it was a little scary when it started, and it's like, what's going to happen with school? What's going to happen with this? Well, then it's like, all right, schools are closed. They started closing schools because I was working in California. They start closing schools. They start doing, like the shelter in place stuff. And then my wife's pregnant. And I was like, you know what? 3 kids at home. 2 of them are in school and are probably about to not be in school. One is the youngest. At that time, she was she's 3 now. So she just turned 3. So she was, almost 2, and now she's pregnant. I was like, dude, this isn't going to cut it. Drove over the Monday morning that I had work, said, hey, sorry, but wife's pregnant. Just send the direct deposit on Friday. I don't need a check now. I'm out. Loaded my tools up, came home, and we were like, let's see what happens. We had never really been caught up on orders. Like we had always had plans like, oh, we're gonna hire. We'll be able to hire. So I had a business mentor who unfortunately passed away shortly after me kind of meeting him and him taking me under his wing. But the one thing he didn't talk to me about, well, he did, but he made it sound like it was no problem. Like, hey, grow. When you need to hire. Like he just kind of breezed over it. Like hiring was going to be, the least of our worries. Well, hiring has been the most of our worries. So we've always been playing catch up, and it was because we were basing a lot of stuff we did on being able to hire. So anyways, came home from COVID, and we had never really went just wide open with the website and stuff, and we just said, hey, let's see what it'll do. And it did well enough to where it was like, okay, I'll be home for a while. Let's go. Rolled through another opening, and we were to the point where it's like, okay, things are going good. We still have enough hours for benefits. The hours are going to carry to the birth of our daughter, so we'll have medical when she comes. Let's do it. Let's go all in. Let's get some new equipment. Let's upgrade the way we're doing things. Let's really start to dive into that. And so we did, with the kind of understand, and we talked about it, my wife and I, because she's probably more important to the business than I am. It was like, we're not doing what we did last time. Like, we would rather have you gone 6 days a week than have you home 7 days a week and out there working till 11 o'clock every night. So it was like, okay, you know what, let's do it then. I agree with you. Last time was just super rough on our family and the kids, and we're still behind on orders and shipping and stuff, but it's a much healthier business life, family life, father, husband, like everything has smoothed out. It's a major pay cut from tramping around doing line work, but the trade-off for us right now is worth it. Like being able to just say, hey, not that they've been able to play any baseball games or anything the last year, but the season is going to open up here this year. So that's getting ready to start. Just being able to say, I'm not missing this. I will never miss another game. I will never miss another daddy-daughter dance. Like, it's not an option. It's not happening. Is like as long as I can pay my bills and put food on the table, if I could live that life, that's what I want. It a little off track of it, but I have a friend, and his dad, he didn't work in the power line trade, but he worked in the energy trade. Spent his whole life working to the bone, dude. Like, all the guys he worked with loved him. We all loved him. He was a great father. They were separated. His mother and father were separated, and I think they separated when he was pretty young. But his dad had a longtime girlfriend and stuff like that. And freaking great dude. Love this guy. And I don't know how long it was after he retired, but I think it was like 3 to 6 months after he retired, he got sick, and he died fast for the disease he had. And, he got to the point where he couldn't physically take care of himself anymore. And he had to rely on other people to physically take care of him. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you what, there wasn't one blue truck that pulled up in front of that house to help take care of that dude. The people who took care of that dude were his son, his longtime girlfriend, and his daughter-in-law. Those were the people that were taking care of him when he couldn't take care of himself. And it was like kind of seeing that, bearing witness to that. It was like, as strong as the brotherhood is and as strong as some of my friendships are out in the trade, when it comes down to it, the only people that truly matter and will truly have your back when the time comes is your family. Your children, your wife. Those are the ones that matter. And maintaining those relationships and helping build those from childhood on, I was like, that is my number one job in life right now. And it kind of took seeing that for it to like really come home, like, dang, what I do out there on the right of way, it's going to happen whether I'm there or not, like, if I'm not there, someone else will be there doing it, so.
Man, I really liked what you said, Kevin, that it took that realization from seeing that, and fortunate as it is, through that man's death and the way everything happened, you know what I mean, that you saw that, right? And you used it to say to yourself, hey, man, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to do that to my family. And man, that's an eye opener, bro. It truly is, you know what I mean? And I know our audience are going to, really, really appreciate what you have to say, because I mean, I'm blown away by that story right there, dude. I mean, I really am. It really touched me, because you're absolutely right, dude. At the end of the day, what are your kids, when you pass away, what are your kids going to say about you? You know what I mean? Are they going to say, hey, daddy made a lot of money, he bought everything, but he never spent time with me? You know what I mean? Or are they going to say, hey, kind of like my buddy Gene Gloudman, his upbringing. He told us one time on the podcast that he was poor. I mean, he was the 14th child out of 15. And
Damn.
Yeah, right. And it didn't matter to him because his dad was always there. Always there. He was there to play baseball with them. And he said no amount of money can ever replace that,
Yeah.
And it's good.
It's so many of us work with the goal of retirement in mind. Like, you have this idea that once I retire, I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want. But until then, you're going to miss everything. And my wife and I, when we were dating, I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have like personal encounters or relationships with people, and as insignificant as it might be or sound, it had profound effects on the way I live my life now. So when we were dating, I had like a 4-day weekend, and it was like, dude, we would just jump in the car and drive. Like, it didn't matter how far. Like, if I could get back to work on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it was that I had off, by 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., we're good. So we're like, hey, have you been to Yellowstone? No. Have you been to Yellowstone? No. All right. Well, I get off work at 4:30, pack the car, when I get home, we're hitting the road. So we drove it's actually working in Pismo Beach at the time. We drove from Pismo Beach in California. We stayed at my parents' house, which was like 5 hours away, stayed the night there, and then went from there to Yellowstone the next day. Well, dude, we're sitting at Old Faithful on the bench, and I'm sitting next to this old timer, and he was from Sacramento. Oddly enough, he was from right close to where I grew up, and he was a retired Sac County sheriff. Had been just, dude, had one hell of a ride as a sheriff deputy, and his body paid the price for it. You know, he'd been fist fighting bad guys and everything else, jumping fences, chasing people, whatever bad stuff was going on in Sac County, he was right in the middle of it. So I'm sitting next to him, and he's like, man, that's awesome to see. Because at the time, I was still in my 20s. My wife was in her 20s. He's like, man, it's so good to see young people like you guys out enjoying life and seeing things like this. You know, it's like not too many I say kids, but, young adults think about going to Old Faithful, at least that's what he thought. Right. So we're like, yeah, right on. And he's telling me, he's like, he said, I worked my whole life so I could go out and travel and do things like this I'm doing right now. He said, but you know what? I'm never gonna know what's on the other side of that hill right there, because there isn't a sidewalk leading me to it. He says, if it ain't a paved path, I can't get there. I am so beat up and just wore down. I spent the best years of my life at work all the time. That's all I did. And he said, do not spend the best years of your life working. He's like, you'll have to spend some of it working. He's like, but though, he said, your years from, basically when you graduate high school to, mid 40s, 50s, whatever, before retirement, he's like, those are your best years. Don't waste those doing stuff you don't want to do. Spend those years living your life and doing the things you want to do. Don't wait till you're old like me to go do a bunch of stuff you've been wanting to do your whole life. So, because you won't be able to do it, It's like, damn. All right. I was like, man, it just kind of like hit me like, dang, dude, he's preaching to me right now, dude. I'm he's making some good sense out of this. And it was something, I'd never really thought of. I'm like, hey, I've got some free time, go do whatever. But I never based anything in my life around living. I based my life around work, So that changed the way that my wife and I both kind of do everything. Like, these are the best years.
No, absolutely. It's crazy to see that you're able to, with this guy telling you that, you know what I mean? That you're able to just be able to share that now with your children. You know what I mean? This whole process that you go through, right? From working and all that stuff. It's like it's come to full circle now. And where you're at, right? And now you're able to share that with your children. You have that freedom, you were talking about how when you transitioned into this trade or from your trade to what you're doing now, being an entrepreneur, that you don't have to listen to anybody really. You know what I mean? You're in total control now. You don't got to listen to people telling you this or that or anything like that. You know what I mean? Obviously you have your customers and everything in your fan base, but now you have more freedom. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. And being able to utilize the best years of your life, like that man said, those are words of wisdom right there, dude. I mean, and it's so true. So many of us forget that we're more than just a provider or a paycheck for our families. So many of us get caught up into this grind. I had one of our guests come on the show, and he's a motivational speaker. He goes around the country, with like NFL teams and stuff like that. His name's Dr. Billy Allsbrooks. And the dude always says this. He's like, the acronym for job is just over broke. He's like, when you truly are doing what you love to do, he's like, you can work 96 hours, bro, and not be tired. You'll be energized because you're living in alignment with your assignment. You know what I mean? And I love what he says, you know what I mean? And that's good to see that you're doing that. You know what I mean? And that's the whole goal. That's what I needed to do for my family as well, transitioning from the line trade to where I am now, to where I'm actually trying to give back and create as much value back to our community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's hard. It's been an emotional roller coaster going from doing line work to doing sewing. I mean, it doesn't get much more polar opposite than that, and feeling like you're leaving people behind, that your boys, your brothers are out there working and you're at home. And, I've struggled a lot with the mental and kind of psychological side effects of, I mean, that was line work was being a lineman was my identity more or less my entire adult life, and being, and with what you're doing with the Show Up Dad, it's like it gives us the ability to kind of step back from work and really think about what is the most important things in your life. Why are you going to work every day? Why are you doing this? So I appreciate what you're doing and giving back, because it's something we don't talk about. We don't talk about it on the right of way. Like, if we talk about anything, it's usually, has to do with work or, some other, maybe derogatory stuff. I mean, like that the one thing you don't bring to work with you in your lunchbox is your feelings. Like, those stay at home. Like, you don't bring those to work with you. You never sit down and have a real talk about, like, man, I feel like I'm failing as a father or a husband. Like, dude, you're not going to say that to your pole partner as you're, driving out to the job in the crummy. It just ain't happening. And being able to, provide a platform to where, guys can at least, listen and absorb some of these things that they're all thinking. They're all thinking it. Like, yeah, I'm just honored that I can be, a little part of it and help contribute, because there was a time where I was just like, dude, I'm failing. I'm failing as a father. Like, and it was like I was either out here working on the right way working, or I'm on my phone. And we just recently cut Facebook in the clear, because Facebook and Instagram kind of it's more or less the same thing, but they operate completely different. Like, the culture on Facebook is way different than the culture on Instagram. And I mean, there was a point where it was just like my phone was just nonstop, like where I cannot do DMs anymore. Like, I just can't. And talking to my wife, like, oh God, like, we're trying to grow and build this business and provide the best, customer experience we can, and provide them with the best products that, we have the ability to make. And, it's like, just, one message turns into 3 or 4 more messages and correspondence, and then I got 100 of them, and it's like 5 o'clock in the evening. I got 100 people I got to get back to. And it was just like, it was too much. It was just way too much. And I just couldn't live like that anymore. Like, I couldn't, like, every time, my daughter or my son come up to tell me something, and I'm like trying to, like, put the phone down. Like, God dang, man. Like, it's a failure that's super easy to not even recognize it being a failure, and there's so many other different things that can cause us to fail as a father or a husband. And being able to be able to identify those through something like, your podcast, and hearing other guys, talk about it. Yeah, it's great, man. Because feeling like you're feeling as a father is like, when I felt like that, I was like, dude, I'm a dirtbag. Like, as much as we may have materialistically or not, that, I mean, I drive a 2006 Toyota Sequoia with like 265,000 miles on it, like I don't have what I had as a JL, like, so, but it's so much more rewarding for myself and the family of being able to have finally kind of found that balance after so long,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I agree with you 100%, brother. And thank you for all the kind words that you said and everything. And that's why we do this here at the Show Up, Dad. I think this is going to be an awesome episode. I think a lot of people are going to be tremendously blessed by you just opening up and being real to our audience. I wanted to ask you one last question, Kevin. Looking back, let's say to when you're tramping around, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. What advice would you give yourself to be a show up dad?
oh man, there's probably quite a bit of advice I would have given myself. Probably one of the number one things would just learn how to say no. Like, learn how to say no. And I tell you, dude, it's freaking hard. I struggle with it every day still. Like, um, being able to say no to the phone call to come to work, being able to say no to going out to the bar after work, just learning how to say no would probably be one of the best words of advice I could have got. But oh, and also probably, like, because my life has changed so much, that there was a lot that I took for granted when I worked, like, that I could have used now. So it'd be more kind of like, I mean, forever, dude, for a long time, like, I didn't have, like, my goal was retirement. Like, that was my only goal in life. Like, like, just, dude, just work, make money, and make it to retirement. And once you retire, you can do whatever you want, your 401k or your annuity or whatever you have, pension. Like, you'll be able to do whatever you want then, I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into all the mistakes I've made along the way, because there's been a lot of them. But
Yeah.
With the way things that have turned out, and the position I am now to be like 15 years ago, set yourself some goals. Whatever it may be. Like, so many of us, and I won't say so many of us, but I know there's a lot of us that will think like, like, when I started the business, it was like, if I could only, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but like, if I could only, get to the point where I don't have to do line work every day, I can do line work whenever I want. That's a goal. I mean, that's a good goal to have, but you need to always have something that you're building to. Like, I don't know, I'm a little kind of all over the place with this. I got so many things going through my head about about goals and everything. You will, and I heard this from someone else. This isn't anything I came up with, but you overestimate what you can do in a month, and you underestimate what you can do in 5 years. So when you start thinking about, a 1-year goal or a 2-year goal or a 5-year goal or a 10-year goal, whatever it may be, whether it's buying homes and turning them into rentals, or flipping houses, or like the work to achieve those goals starts now.
Yeah.
And I'll,
Yeah.
kind of use our business as an example. If I had been keeping a little notebook from the time I started doing line work about ideas and things for gear and whatever, like I would have been so much further ahead when I really started, like if you're able to kind of figure out like what you want to be doing 10 years from now or 15 years from now, you can start working on it right now. And you can and you can just start putting in a little bit of work every day, and it can be something as small as a Google search or a phone call or an email. It's I think that's a big problem with guys like myself, is not having that goal you're kind of working toward and trying to achieve, and the only goal being retirement, because you find yourself in those years between working and retirement that you really have no direction. Like all you got to do is just show up to work every day. If you have a purpose beyond retirement, a goal you're trying to reach, I think it just helps kind of straighten you out a little bit and keep you more focused on just the way you're leading your life in general. Like, because before I had ever even thought about going into business for myself, I mean, it was like every day was just kind of like a crapshoot, just whatever comes of the day, whatever, I mean, plans and stuff with family. But like I think it's really fulfilling mentally, because we make, the money we make in the trade is really good. And being able to put all of your hard work towards a goal other than retirement would probably be the advice I would give myself as a youngster when I started. Like, give yourself something else to work for, not just, your pension or whatever.
No, I like that. And those are definitely sound words of wisdom right there, bro, because one of the last conversations I had with my brother, I asked him, I was like, well, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, oh, you want to leave a legacy or what? I was trying to get him to think big, right? Have a vision.
Yeah.
And he told me, all I have is 20 more years, bro. He's like, that's it. He's like, and then I'll go hunting or wherever the heck I'm going to do. He's like, but I just got 20 more years, of this damn trade. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate as that sounds, he didn't have 20 more years. You know what I mean? He passed away 2 weeks later, you know what I mean, on a hunting trip. And that's one of the things I just wanted to bring up real quick, bro, because not even knowing you or anything like that, just reaching out to you because he loved your hats and everything you stood for. In fact, one of the last pictures ever taken, he was in a low drag Linehand MFJL hat. Okay. That was in fact the day before he died, when him and his wife were up against the tree. I think I showed you that picture. And, just reaching out to you and just what you're able to do for his family, bro. From my family to your family, dude, on air, I just want to thank you, dude, because you didn't have to do that. You guys helped out his family tremendously, and that's what brotherhood's about. That's that big heart you spoke about earlier on. And I just want to thank you because you got that from your father. You know what I mean? And now you're going to transition that to your children. And that is a great trait, bro. It truly, truly is. And I just want to thank you for that, dude, because you were able to just reach out and bless someone in need. You know what I mean? Like his family. And I thank you for that, dude. Just on air, I just want to say thank you so much, dude.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. And dude, I'm sorry for your guys's loss. And when God, it just man, when you sent me that message and that picture, I was just like, that's me sitting against that tree with my wife, like that's any one of us. And it's you never know when you're gonna punch that last ticket. And I'm thankful and blessed that we've been able to build a brotherhood, with Low Drag Linehand, to where we're able to kind of be the conduit to pass a hat, and help out a fellow brother, because it happens a lot, and most of the time it goes unnoticed, and we're just blessed to be in the situation that we're in, to be able to help other line families out. And trust me, it was our honor to be able to help his family and your family out a little bit. It brings us joy too. It's not a one way street. So it makes us feel good to be able to do something like that and give back, to the people that support us too. He had one of our hats on. It's just like, oh my God, like I touched that hat. Like everything that comes out of this shop goes through these hands, and yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that.
No worries, brother. Once again, Kevin, thank you for being a part of the Show Up Dad movement. This is an honor to just have you on here, brother, and just to thank you, and just for you to share with our listeners, being real with our audience, the struggles you went through and stuff like that. We are a nonprofit organization looking to ignite the fire for father engagement here at the Show Up Dad. For more info on our critically acclaimed Fathering at 15 program, go to the showupdadfoundation.org. And this episode is brought to you by our sponsors of On Fire Ministries, Line 11, and the Modern Day Tradesman. Right now, Line 11 Clothing is Modern Day Tradesmen are just launched their new lineup of extra cool gear. Check them out. They're on Instagram. And Kevin, I just want to have you share with our audience how they can reach out to you. And if you have anything that you have putting out right now, if you would want to share that, I'd be more than happy to have you do that for us.
Yeah, we cut our Facebook page in the clear for now. We made it inactive. We got a little bit of a hump to get over. Once we get over that hump, we'll open Facebook back up. I just feel like I couldn't provide our customers and followers on Facebook the attention that they deserve. So, but Instagram, we're on Instagram at low_drag_linehand. And you know what? I think there is one thing I want to say. We're getting ready to start a compensation program where you take a picture, hashtag low drag linehand, tag us in the picture. If you have a private account, probably put it in your stories. I'll be able to see it if it's in your stories. I don't think I can see it on your page if you have a private account. So there's been a ton of companies that have been able to build their business and their brand off of our hard work as linemen. And I want to be able to give back to the people, to the brothers on social media that take pictures and repost them and tag us in them and help spread the word and the movement of what we're doing. So we're starting the compensation program. Tag us, hashtag low drag linehand, and once a month we're gonna do a drawing. We'll give away hats, stickers, gift certificates, and even some gear. So that's just kind of our way of giving back to the people that have helped build our brand on social media. Because honestly, without Instagram, especially Instagram, I mean, we wouldn't be where we're at. And the support of the brotherhood, I think, a lot of us have kind of been taken advantage of when it comes to our hard work. And there's some people, making a lot of money off what you guys are doing in the field. So we want to give back to the brotherhood. So that's kind of our goal. We don't really have any like new products or anything that we're dropping right now. There's not whole lot going on the website, but we do make announcements on our newsletter. You can sign up for that at lowdraglinehand.com, and we make announcements on Instagram of when we're going to be opening up and taking orders and stuff like that. But we're making good headway. We got 2 employees, that are part of the team now, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So to all the hands out there, thank you guys so much for helping build us, and we're doing everything we can. Make announcements on Instagram like that, but we're making good headway. We got 2 employees, that are part 5 generations removed from the trade, making your stuff, making your gear. We're doing it. We're out there.
Well, right on, brother. Once again, Kevin, thank you for coming on here, dude, and just sharing everything, dude. And we support you 100% here at the Show Up Dad Foundation. And dude, thank you for coming on this podcast and making this happen, bro. I know you're a busy guy, and thank you, bro.
No, thank you. I'm just glad to hopefully I was able to shed some light on the struggles we all face out there, whether you're a lineman or not, of how important it is to be present when you're home, and or just be present in general. So I like what you're doing. I'm honored that you had me on here to share my story and what I got going on, because there isn't anyone else out there talking about it,
Well, once again, thank you, Kevin, and I appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.